So now we're going to talk about just basic conversions. In our course, I gave y'all a main conversion sheet. Please use it to determine your conversions. Also, guys, you need to have it memorized for the final exam and for test time. You need to know this. This shouldn't be something you have to go dig through a piece of paper to find or the computer, because there's going to be times you don't have time for that. Also, the more you learn now, the further you get into the health field or whatever area you're going into that requires this, the easier it's going to be to learn the newer stuff because you got this down. And if they ever make changes, you can adapt to changes. So let's talk about question number 1. It says that I have 700,000 units, and what's available is 10,000 units per milliliter. And I asked you how many milliliters will you be administering, or how many milliliters is available, whatever the question may be. But we want to know how many milliliters we're going to give the patient. So if you have 700,000 for your order, we're just going to set it up like a regular conversion, or you can use formula method. We're solving for milliliters, so it needs to go on top, and let's divide by that 10,000 units. Guys, just be very careful you add the correct zeros. Sometimes we drop a zero or put too many zeros and it'll change your answer. And this here is going to give me 70 milliliters, right? After I reduce the unit out, 700,000 times 1 divided by 10,000 gives me 70 milliliters. That would be what you administer based upon the order and what's available. Number 2. Number 2 says I have 1.5 cups, and I want to know how many teaspoons that is equivalent to. So what we do know is for every 1 cup is equal to 8 ounces. I know there's glasses. Sometimes we factor in a glass, but in this class here, I'm just sticking with 8 ounces. I'm sticking with that conversion sheet I gave you. So we want to know how many teaspoons are in this cup. Well, I know that for every 1 cup, it's 8 ounces. I also know for every 1 ounce, that is equal to 6 teaspoons. So now I can do my conversions, right? I can set it up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this number 3 down just a little bit so I can have a little bit more room to factor this in. So I'm going to write this down a little bit and erase here. So I'm going to set up my conversions. I know that I started out with 1.5 cups. I'll put it over 1, multiply. And I'm going to set in 2 needed conversions to get my final answer. I'm going to use this 1 cup to 8 ounces because I'm going to go ahead and reduce the cup out. So now I can go like this and go cup reduced with cup. So we did that right. And we're solving for teaspoons, so make sure that your end answer does have teaspoon on top. The ounce on bottom. Was I able to mark out the ounces? And yes, we did great. So now what do I have? I have 1.5 times 8 times 6, which gives me 72 teaspoons. Okay, that worked out nice and pretty. So number 3 says I have 2 pints, and I want to know how many milliliters that is. Off that conversion sheet I gave you in our class, it says for every 1 pint, that is equivalent to 500 milliliters. Well, this one here worked out nice and pretty. For every 1 pint, it's 500 milliliters. So if I have 2 pints, then I have 1,000 milliliters. It's 2 times that 500. Milliliters, if you'll notice in that conversion sheet, they round them. And if you go to different sites, different books, everything rounds differently. It rounds to the hundreds, it rounds to the whole number. You just need to understand why they're rounding, and you need to understand when to round, and you need to make sure wherever you're at, whoever's classroom or work you're at, that you're able to adapt. As long as you can do the math, that's not going to be a problem. So number 4 says that I have 5 teaspoons, and I want to know how many tablespoons that is. I know for every 1 tablespoon, that's 3 teaspoons. So if I was to set this up correctly, that means my conversion for this would be, let me just make some more room right here. Let's put this 1 tablespoon is equal to 3T here. Let's set this up. I got 5 teaspoons over 1 times my needed conversion, 1 tablespoon over 3 teaspoons, and it's equivalently. So I can go through here and mark out my teaspoons. And it says 5 times 1 divided by 3 gives me, and I'm going to round to the nearest hundreds, guys, 1.67 tablespoons. Number 5 says we have 3 quarts, and I want to know how many ounces that is. Well, I know for every 1 quart, that is 32 ounces. So let's set this up. I have 3 quarts over 1 times 32 ounce over 1 quart. It's approximate. Let's mark out our quarts. It worked out. I'm left with ounces on top. And it gives me 96 ounces. So 96. So for every 3 quarts, it's 96 ounces. And then the last one says, how many liters, if I have 1.5 liters, how many quarts is that? Well, I know that for every 1 liter, that is 1 quart. So this one is pretty easy. It's 1.5 quarts for every 1.5 liters.